Britain passed several taxes. Stamp Act, 1765. Tax on printed items. Townshend Acts, 1767. Tax on imports. Tea Act, 1773. Monopoly on tea. Colonists argued, "No taxation without representation." They believed they should not be taxed by a parliament in which they had no elected members. Circ. British military presence. British troops were stationed in the colonies, increasing resentment. D. The Boston Massacre, 1770. British soldiers killed 5 colonists during a protest. This inflamed public opinion. E. Boston Tea Party, 1773. Colonists, disguised as Native Americans, threw an entire shipment of British tea into Boston Harbor. Britain responded harshly. F. The Intolerable Acts, 1774. Britain punished Massachusetts by closing Boston Harbor, limiting colonial self-government, housing British soldiers in homes. These acts united the colonies against British rule. The American Revolution, 1765 to 1783, was a political, military, and ideological struggle in which the 13 colonies in North America broke away from the British Empire and formed an independent nation, the United States of America. It was one of the most influential revolutions in world history, inspiring movements for democracy across the globe. 1. Background. The 13 colonies. By the mid-1700s, Britain controlled 13 colonies along the eastern coast of North America. These colonies had strong local governments, had growing populations, were economically successful, but they had no representation in the British Parliament. The colonists were loyal to Britain, but wanted more autonomy. 2. Causes of the Revolution. A. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. Britain won this war against France but gained huge debt. To recover money, Britain started taxing the American colonies. B. Taxes without representation. The American Revolution, 1765 to 1783, was a political, military, and ideological struggle in which the 13 colonies in North America broke away from the British Empire and formed an independent nation, the United States of America. It was one of the most influential revolutions in world history, inspiring movements for democracy across the globe. 1. Background. The 13 colonies. By the mid-1700s, Britain controlled 13 colonies along the eastern coast of North America. These colonies had strong local governments, had growing populations, were economically successful, but they had no representation in the British Parliament. The colonists were loyal to Britain, but wanted more autonomy. 2. Causes of the Revolution. A. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. Britain won this war against France but gained huge debt. To recover money, Britain started taxing the American colonies. B. Taxes without representation. 3. Steps toward war. First Continental Congress, 1774. Delegates from 12 colonies met and demanded rights, but Britain refused. Outbreak of war. April 1775. Battles of Lexington and Concord, known as the Shot Heard Round the World. This marked the start of armed conflict between colonists and British troops. 4. Declaration of Independence, 1776. The Second Continental Congress appointed Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. On July 4, 1776, the colonies formally declared independence from Britain. The document stated, "All men are created equal. People have natural rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Governments exist only with the consent of the governed. People can overthrow oppressive governments." This was revolutionary thinking for its time. 5. The War, 1775 to 1783. Strengths and weaknesses. Britain, large professional army, powerful navy, more money. Colonists, smaller, less organized army. Under George Washington, fighting on home soil, motivated by independence. Major events. Battle of Bunker Hill, 1775. Heavy British losses showed colonists could fight. Winter at Valley Forge, 1777 to 1778. Harsh winter where troops trained and became stronger under Baron von Steuben. Battle of Saratoga, 1777. Turning point of the war. The American victory convinced France to join the war against Britain. French alliance, 1778. France provided navy, troops, money. This changed the balance of power. Yorktown, 1781. The last major battle. George Washington and French forces trapped British General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. Cornwallis surrendered. 6. End of the war. Treaty of Paris, 1783. Britain formally recognized the United States of America as an independent nation. The new nation gained land from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River. Recognition by major European powers. 7. Impact of the American Revolution. A. Creation of a new nation. The U.S. became the first large republic in modern history. B. Inspiration to the world. The revolution inspired the French Revolution, 1789, Latin American independence movements, democratic reforms in Europe. C. New political ideas. Ideas of liberty, equality, and representative government spread globally. D. Constitution and Bill of Rights. The U.S. later created Constitution, 1787, Bill of Rights, 1791. These documents influenced political systems worldwide. Conclusion. The American Revolution was not just a war. It was a profound transformation of political thought. It challenged monarchy, promoted democratic ideals, and established a nation built on freedom and self-government. Its effects continue to shape the modern world. 8. Social and cultural changes after the Revolution. While the war ended in 1783, the Revolution continued shaping American society for many decades. A. Changes in government and political thinking. Before the Revolution, people believed kings ruled by divine right. Ordinary people were not fit to govern. Power flowed from the top down. After the Revolution, a radical idea emerged. Government should be chosen by the people and serve the people. This triggered expansion of voting rights, slowly, mostly for white men at first, growth of representative democracy, a shift from subjects of a king to citizens of a republic. B. The role of women. Women played important roles during the Revolution, as nurses, messengers, farm managers, and supporters of boycotts. Although they did not gain political rights immediately, The revolution sparked discussions on women's education and status. Writers like Abigail Adams famously urged, "Remember the ladies." The idea of Republican motherhood emerged. Women were expected to raise educated, informed children to support the new republic. This was the first step toward future women's rights movements. Slavery and African Americans. The revolution revealed a painful contradiction. The Declaration of Independence said all men are created equal. Yet slavery continued. The result: Northern states began abolishing slavery gradually. Southern states tightened their slave laws. Thousands of enslaved people sought freedom by joining British lines. The revolution did not end slavery, but it ignited the long struggle that eventually led to the Civil War and later civil rights movements. Native Americans. Native tribes faced devastating consequences. Many supported the British, believing victory would limit colonial expansion. When Britain lost, native groups lost their strongest ally. U.S. settlers expanded westward across native lands. The revolution marked the beginning of large-scale U.S. westward expansion. 9. Creation of the U.S. Constitution, 1787. After independence, the new United States was governed under the Articles of Confederation, which had major weaknesses. No strong central government, no power to tax, no national currency. States acted like separate countries. These problems led to the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Key features of the new Constitution: 3 branches of government: legislative, Congress; executive, President; judicial, Supreme Court. Checks and balances. No branch could become too powerful. Federalism. Power divided between national and state governments. In 1789, the Constitution became law, creating the government that still exists today. 10. The Bill of Rights, 1791. Many Americans feared a strong government could become tyrannical, like the British monarchy. So the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, were added. 1. Freedom of speech, religion, press. 2. Right to bear arms. 3. No quartering of soldiers. 4. Protection from unreasonable searches. 5. Rights of the accused. 6. Fair trial rights. 7. Jury trial. 8. No cruel or unusual punishment. 9. Rights not listed still belong to the people. 10. Powers not given to the federal government belong to the states. These rights remain central to American identity. 11. Global impact of the American Revolution. The American Revolution inspired movements around the world. A. France. The ideas of liberty and equality helped spark the French Revolution, 1789. French soldiers like Marquis de Lafayette, who fought in America, returned home with revolutionary ideas. B. Latin America. Leaders such as Simón Bolívar, José de San Martín, were inspired by America's victory and fought for independence from Spain. C. Europe. Monarchies grew fearful of republican ideals spreading. The revolution introduced constitutional government, rights of citizens, limits on monarchy. These ideas reshaped politics across Europe. D. Asia and Africa. Much later, in the 19th and 20th centuries, independence movements around the world used American principles of self-determination, democracy, sovereignty as models for their own struggles. 12. Economic consequences. The Revolution transformed the American economy, opened new trade routes, ended British trade restrictions, encouraged industrial growth, led to expansion into Western territories, stimulated creation of national banks and currency. Economic independence helped build a foundation for the future industrial rise of the U.S. 13. Cultural identity and American nationalism. Before the Revolution, colonists saw themselves as British subjects living overseas. After the Revolution, a new identity emerged: American. This included new symbols, flag, national anthem, independence celebrations, new heroes, Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, new values, liberty, equality, opportunity. The Revolution created a shared national story. 14. Long-term importance. The American Revolution remains one of the most influential events in world history because it introduced the modern republic, constitutional democracy, individual rights, separation of powers, popular sovereignty, power of the people. These ideas shaped countless nations and remain core to global political thought today. Conclusion: a revolution that changed the world. The American Revolution was more than a war. It was a transformation in politics, society, economics, culture, global thinking. It produced a new nation, reshaped the world, and began a global movement toward democracy, rights, and self-government. 15. Intellectual roots of the American Revolution. The Revolution didn't happen suddenly. It grew out of powerful philosophical ideas spreading through Europe and the colonies. A. Enlightenment thinkers. Key European philosophers influenced American leaders. John Locke argued that all people have natural rights: life, liberty, property. Montesquieu proposed separation of powers in government. Rousseau believed governments should be created by the consent of the governed. Colonial leaders used these ideas to argue that Britain was violating their rights. B. Republicanism. This ideology became central. Citizens should be active participants in government. Government should protect common good, not royal interests. Virtue and liberty were essential to political life. Republican thinking shaped the Constitution and remains at the heart of American politics. C. Religious influence. The Great Awakening, religious revival, encouraged personal responsibility, equality before God, questioning of authority. These ideas supported the spirit of resistance to tyranny.
P. 16. Key personalities of the Revolution. The Revolution brought forward influential leaders whose decisions shaped the new nation. P. A. George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. Known for discipline, strategic patience, and moral integrity, refused to become king, reinforcing Republican ideals. Later became the first U.S. president. Washington's leadership was vital to victory. P. B. Thomas Jefferson, main author of the Declaration of Independence, advocate of liberty, democracy, and individual rights. Later, the third U.S. president and founder of the University of Virginia. His writing gave the Revolution its philosophical foundation. P. C. Benjamin Franklin, diplomat, inventor, scientist. Secured crucial French support. Helped draft the Declaration and Constitution. France's alliance, largely due to Franklin, was critical to winning the war. D. John Adams, tireless advocate for independence, defended British soldiers in the Boston Massacre on principle. Key negotiator in the Treaty of Paris, 1783. Later became the second president, Adams shaped both diplomacy and domestic politics. E. Other important figures. Samuel Adams, master organizer, helped spark Boston protests. Alexander Hamilton, Washington's aide, later architect of U.S. finance. Patrick Henry, famous for "Give me liberty or give me death." Thomas Paine, author of Common Sense, which inspired mass support for independence. Their combined efforts made independence possible.
17. Military strategies and tactics. Despite being less equipped, the American forces succeeded using smarter strategies. British strategy. Britain's goals: capture major cities, split colonies, especially isolate New England, win quickly to avoid long, expensive war. Weaknesses: fighting far from home, underestimating American morale, supply problems, unfamiliar terrain. American strategy. The Continental Army used 1. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, avoiding large open-field battles. 2. War of attrition. Washington often retreated to preserve the army, forcing Britain into a long war. 3. Foreign support. France provided ships, soldiers, and money. Spain and the Netherlands indirectly helped. European officers trained troops. Knowledge of geography. Americans used forests, rivers, and terrain to their advantage. These strategies slowly wore down the British military. 18. Diplomacy. The hidden weapon. Victory was not won only on the battlefield. Diplomacy was equally important. A. French alliance. After the American victory at Saratoga, 1777, France formally joined the war. They provided naval power, 12,000 plus soldiers, large financial loans, global pressure on Britain. B. Internationalization of the war. Once France entered, the war expanded. Spain attacked British territories. Dutch banks financed American loans. British forces were stretched thin worldwide. The Revolution transformed into a global conflict. B. Treaty of Paris, 1783. Negotiated by John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, John Jay. Britain recognized liberty in 2 words. Great American independence. American borders up to the Mississippi River. Fishing rights on Canadian coasts. It was a diplomatic triumph. B. 19. Economic transformation after the Revolution. The Revolution reshaped the American economy in major ways. B. A. From mercantilism to free trade. Under British rule, colonies were restricted, could only trade with Britain, could not manufacture many goods. Export taxes were imposed. Independence allowed new trade with Europe, Caribbean, and Asia, development of American manufacturing, growth of a national market. B. Expansion westward. The new nation controlled vast territory. This fueled agriculture, settlement, resource extraction, new states. It also led to conflicts with Native Americans. C. Financial innovation. Under Hamilton later, national bank, unified currency, public credit system. The foundations of American capitalism were born. 20. Legacy of the American Revolution. The Revolution was not just a historical event. It created a new political model for the world. 1. Birth of modern democracy. The Revolution introduced written constitutions, elected governments, rule of law, individual rights. Today, most countries follow these principles. Above. Inspiration for future movements. The Revolution inspired. French Revolution, 1789. Latin American Independence Wars. European Democratic Revolutions. 20th century anti-colonial movements. It reshaped global political history. 3. A new American identity. Citizens began to see themselves not as Europeans, but as Americans, defined by liberty, equality, in theory though incomplete, opportunity, individualism. This identity still shapes U.S. culture. Above. 21. Propaganda, printing, and the battle for public opinion. The American Revolution was not won by weapons alone. It was also a war of ideas, fought on paper, in pamphlets, and in newspapers. A. The power of the printing press. In the 18th century, the printing press was the most powerful communication tool in the colonies. It enabled rapid spread of political ideas, unification of colonies, mobilization of public opinion. Colonial newspapers published fiery editorials condemning British policies. B. Thomas Paine's Common Sense, 1776. This pamphlet changed history. Sold over 150,000 copies, enormous for that era. Said monarchy was unnatural. Said America must be completely independent, not just reformed. Reached farmers, laborers, and ordinary citizens. Paine's writing gave the revolution a popular voice, not just an elite philosophical argument. Political cartoons and satire. Cartoons mocked British soldiers, King George III, unfair taxes. Humor became a weapon. In many ways, propaganda unified people who had never met, but shared the same frustrations. Over. Life of ordinary soldiers during the Revolution. The Continental Army wasn't made up of professional soldiers. It consisted mostly of farmers, artisans, and young men with little training. Over. A. Harsh conditions. Soldiers often lacked shoes, warm clothing, food, ammunition. Many walked barefoot in the snow. Some survived on fire cakes, flour mixed with water, baked on rocks. Over. B. Discipline and training. Washington struggled early on, but the arrival of Baron von Steuben, a Prussian officer, changed the army dramatically. He taught discipline, close-order drills, coordinated firing, bayonet charges. Von Steuben turned amateurs into a professional fighting force. O. Pay and incentives. Soldiers were promised small wages, free land after the war, but payment was often late or non-existent. Yet many remained loyal to the cause of liberty. O. D. Women in the Army. Women known as camp followers helped cook, wash clothes, nurse the wounded, repair uniforms. Some even fought disguised as men, the most famous being Deborah Sampson. 23. Civilian life, the home front. While men fought, the rest of America struggled through shortages, inflation, fear of invasion. O. Women running the economy. With husbands and sons at war, women took over farms, shops, homes, finances. This increased women's social and economic influence. B. Loyalists versus patriots. Not everyone supported the revolution. About 20 to 25% of colonists were loyalists, loyal to Britain. Families were divided. Neighborhoods turned violent. Some loyalists fled to Canada, Britain, Caribbean. The revolution was also a civil war. C. Impact on enslaved people. Enslaved Africans saw opportunity. Britain offered freedom to enslaved people who joined their army. Thousands escaped plantations to fight on the British side. Some gained freedom, others were re-enslaved. The Revolution exposed deep contradictions about liberty. 24. The Revolution and Native Americans. Native tribes were caught between two powerful forces. A. Most native nations sided with Britain. Why? Britain tried to limit colonial expansion westward. Colonists continually pushed into native lands. Natives believed British victory would protect their territory. B. Consequences after the war. The opposite happened. Britain abandoned native allies. American settlers expanded west. Native lands were seized. Conflicts intensified for decades. The Revolution marked the beginning of enormous loss for native peoples. International rivalries and the global scope of the war. Though focused in America, the Revolution became a world war. A. Britain versus France. Old enemies clashed again. France supported America, partly to weaken Britain. Spain's role. Spain helped indirectly by fighting Britain in Florida, distracting British troops, funding the American cause. The Netherlands. Dutch banks loaned huge sums to the United States. Britain eventually fought the Dutch in the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War. D. Global consequences. The Revolution forced Britain to defend Caribbean colonies, Canada, India, and Gibraltar. Britain couldn't focus all its power on America. The war for independence became truly international. 26. The early United States after the Revolution. Winning independence was only the beginning. The new republic faced enormous challenges. A. Unity was fragile. The states were different in population, economics, and interests. Some feared the new nation wouldn't hold together. Now B. Economic crisis. After the war, inflation soared, trade collapsed, debt increased, soldiers demanded pay. The Articles of Confederation were too weak to solve these problems. C. Shays' Rebellion, 1786-1787. Farmers in Massachusetts, angry about debt and taxes, launched an armed uprising. The government struggled to stop it. This shocked national leaders and convinced them that a stronger government was needed, leading to the Constitutional Convention. Rise of political parties. Although the founders disliked parties, they emerged quickly. Federalists, Hamilton, Adams, wanted a strong central government. Democratic Republicans, Jefferson, Madison, wanted limited federal power. This rivalry shaped early American politics. 27. The Revolution's limitations and contradictions. The Revolution promised liberty, but reality was complicated. A. Slavery continued. The Revolution didn't solve racial inequality. Southern states protected slavery. Northern states abolished it slowly. The issue kept dividing the nation. It eventually led to the Civil War. B. Women's rights. Women gained respect, but not equality. Could not vote. Had limited property rights. Were expected to focus on home and family. Full equality wouldn't come until much later. C. Native American losses. Despite ideals of liberty, America expanded westward at the cost of native lands. Poor and landless citizens. Many poor Americans gained little from independence. Voting rights usually required land ownership. Change would come gradually. The Revolution didn't just shape one nation, it reshaped the world. The American Revolution that we are talking about. The success of the United States proved a colony could overthrow a European empire. Republican government could work. Monarchy was not inevitable. French officers who fought in America, like Lafayette, took revolutionary ideas back home. Ideas such as natural rights, sovereignty of the people, anti-aristocratic sentiment helped ignite the French uprising. The Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804. Enslaved Africans in Haiti used the ideals of liberty to fuel the only successful slave revolution in history. 3. Revolutions in Latin America. Leaders like Bolívar admired the American model and sought similar independence movements against Spain and Portugal. Democratic movements worldwide. The revolution showed the world that people could fight for and win self-rule. B. A new model of government. The newly formed United States became a political experiment, the first large-scale republic of the modern era. Core principles that spread globally: written constitutions, separation of powers, civil liberties, elected legislatures, rule of law. This American model deeply influenced Europe and the Americas. And, a new language of rights. Phrases from the revolution became universal. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. Consent of the governed. Even groups excluded at the time, women, enslaved people, workers, later used these same words to demand equality. And D. Weakening European empires. Britain's defeat encouraged other colonies to believe independence was possible. It also forced Britain to rethink its empire, leading eventually to less coercion, more self-governing colonies, the rise of parliamentary systems in Canada, Australia, etc. 29. A detailed look at major battles. Deep dive. This section offers a deeper, documentary-style look at the most important battles. 1. A. Lexington and Concord, 1775. The shot heard round the world. British troops marched to seize colonial weapons. Minutemen confronted them. No one knows who fired first, but the revolution had begun. B. Bunker Hill, 1775. A bloody, symbolic victory for Britain. Colonials proved they could fight. British generals realized the war would not be easy. C. The New York Campaign, 1776. Britain's attempt to crush the rebellion early. Washington was outnumbered, but escaped repeatedly, saving the Continental Army. D. Trenton and Princeton, 1776 to 1777. Washington's risky Christmas attack across the Delaware River boosted morale, saved the revolution, revived public faith. E. Saratoga, 1777. The turning point. Parenthesis. American victory convinced France to join the war, transforming a colonial rebellion into a global conflict. F. Southern Campaign, 1780 to 1781. Brutal Civil War conditions. Battles like Kings Mountain and Cowpens weakened the British grip. G. Yorktown, 1781. French Navy plus American Army trapped General Cornwallis. This forced Britain to negotiate peace. End of parenthesis. The war was effectively over. 5. The revolution's economic aftermath. Winning independence created new financial storms. A. War debts. The U.S. owed money to France, Spain, the Netherlands, and private lenders. The young economy was fragile. B. Collapse of British trade. After the war, Britain restricted trade with the U.S. This forced America to develop domestic markets, manufacturing, N. Private lenders. New global trade routes. C. Inflation and hardship. Paper money, continentals became almost worthless. Some lost land. Shays' rebellion emerged from these tensions. Hamilton's financial plan. Alexander Hamilton later stabilized the economy by 1. Assuming state debts. 2. Creating a national bank. 3. Establishing solid credit. 4. Encouraging manufacturing. This helped transform America into a commercial and industrial power. Apprentices. 31. Culture and identity after the Revolution. The Revolution didn't just create a new government, it created a new identity. A new American culture. People began identifying as Americans, not Virginians or Massachusetts men. Cultural symbols emerged: the bald eagle, the American flag. Thanks. Independence Day. Patriotic songs. A shared mythology formed around founders like Washington, Franklin, and Jefferson. Apprentices. The U.S. became the first nation to separate church and state. This encouraged religious freedom, proliferation of denominations, revival movements, the Second Great Awakening. C. Education and enlightenment. Revolutionary ideals valued knowledge. As a result, literacy increased, new schools were founded, universities embraced science and philosophy. The Enlightenment spirit lived on in the new nation. P. 32. African Americans in the Revolution. Complex realities. The Revolution held both hope and tragedy for African Americans. A. Enslaved people who fought. P. About 5,000 to 7,000 African Americans fought for the Continental Army. Soldiers, sailors, spies, laborers. Many hoped for freedom. B. African Americans on the British side. Britain offered freedom to any enslaved person who escaped. Tens of thousands fled plantations. Some evacuated with the British and became free in Canada, England, Sierra Leone, P.C. Northern states begin abolition. The Revolution inspired gradual emancipation laws in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island. But slavery grew in the South. Contradiction of liberty and slavery. Founders like Jefferson and Washington owned enslaved people while writing about freedom. This contradiction haunted the new nation.